NFL Week 14 is here, and you're watching the 4Ps, parlays, player props, and predictions. In this video, 3 player props and this week's edition of our Anytime Touchdown Parlay, which comes in just south of plus 2,000 odds. Stay tuned for that. If you are new, my name's Austin from Calling Our Shot. Thank you for tuning in. As always, we begin the day recapping how we did on Thursday. It was a 1-1 day, not the worst thing in the world. We cashed our Lions same game parlay thanks to Monra St. Brown clutching up at the end of the game. Josh Jacobs didn't get anything in the air. He had the rush yards, but they just didn't. I mean, he scored 3 touchdowns, just not a lot of yards there for him. But a 1-1 day, I am anticipating a big Sunday, and we're going to absolutely dominate. Let's dive into some things. My first 2 notes, and then we'll get on into the picks. The first one is Sleeper. You can use some of these picks over on Sleeper. Right now, if you use my code COS, they'll match your deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,500. Hey, it's great. Hey, that's a pretty good offer. Almost $1,500 for free if you deposit that much. Hey, go for it. Either way, use code COS or the link down below. They'll also give you a Patrick Mahomes free square. Looks like this that you'll be able to use on Sunday Night Football. So take advantage of that code COS or the link down below. Last note before we dive in is that we do have another NFL video dropping Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern with 5 more player props. That video did not do well last week, so you better believe I'm bouncing back. We might go 5-0 in that video with 5 more player props. I encourage you to check it out. I'll link both of those videos, all this stuff down below in the description. Let's dive into some things. I'm trying to decide if we want to do the Anytime Touchdown Parlay first or our 2-unit play. Let's kick things off with our Anytime Touchdown Parlay. These 3 fellas getting into the end zone. Drake London of the Atlanta Falcons, Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans, and Cooper Kupp of the Los Angeles Rams. 3 wide receivers, all to score touchdowns, plus 1965 on BetMGM. If you were born in 1965, I appreciate you. Shout out to my dad. That's when he was born. You're turning 60 next year. Hey, big year for all my 1965 bettors. If that's you, you better go lock this parlay in. Drake London, I know the Falcons haven't thrown a passing touchdown like a year, but again, Kirk Cousins returned back home, a great spot to throw the football. I like Drake London there. Calvin Ridley, revenge game against the Jags. I won't lie to you, I need a big week from Ridley. I have his futures over, and we're at the table, but we need him to stay healthy, and we need one big game, and it could come this week against the Titans. And then Cooper Kupp, late window, 4 p.m. against the Bills. I think he gets into the end zone. All 3 of those guys to score 1965 on BetMGM. Lock it in. Let's dive into the props, and we'll start with our 2-unit prop of the week. Now, last week, I did 2-unit plays. The first one, James Conner's over in rush yards, sweat-free. The second one, CMC's over in rushing plus receiving yards, sweat-free until he got injured. Then there's nothing we could do there. He was like, man, it's still angry. But hey, let's move on. Let's cash this one. And actually, this is not a 2-unit play. It's 2 plays on the same guy for 1 unit. Let's talk about it. Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have 1 unit on both of his pass attempts line and his pass yard. So in total, 2 units on Baker Mayfield. Obviously, these 2 are very correlated. If he's not going to get pass yards, if he's not throwing the ball. I like his over 31.5 pass attempts at minus 117 on Caesars for 1 unit. I also like his over 240.5 passing yards, minus 114 on FanDuel. I would take each of these for 1 unit, and I'd take probably the pass attempts maybe up to 33.5, or I maybe just pivot to putting a little bit more on the yards, which I'd play up to about 250.5. Now, why are we back in Baker Mayfield in this spot? Now, Baker obviously has Mike Evans back, who's chasing his 1,000th yard season for 1,100 million consecutive years. But I think Baker in this offense has to pass on Sunday against the Raiders. Now, the last 10 games, Baker is over this line in 6 of 10. He has had 3 games recently where he's had 29, 30, and 31. So right there. Now he is over the pass yards line and only 5 of 10. I like both of them, and there's a good reason why. In the last few matchups, we've actually seen some bad matchups for Baker. Now, some of it due to his personnel. He doesn't have a lot of great options out there when obviously Chris Godwin out for the year and Mike Evans is out. But now that he's back, I like the options. And we look at the most recent matchups. The last 4 haven't been great for him. He's faced Kansas City and San Francisco, 2 really good defenses defending the pass. And then he faced the Giants and Panthers, 2 terrible rush defenses. So 4 matchups against teams where either 1, it's tough to throw the ball against, or 2, you don't need to throw the ball. Now you kind of need to throw the ball against the Raiders. Look at the Raiders. They have a great run defense, which we'll touch on in a second. And then they have a very bad pass defense. The last 5 QBs to face the Raiders, they've all attempted and hit this over 38, 39, 36, 42, and 46 pass attempts. And all of them soared over the yards at 250 or more yards in every single game. Let's also keep in mind that the Raiders have sucked in all these games. Let's not take that away from them. They have sucked. They have lost 3 of those games by 10 or more points. They've lost every single game. Obviously, I'm not anticipating the Buccaneers losing this game, but even when teams are in a positive game script, they're still throwing it against the Raiders because their defense is that bad. But the real reason is because their rush defense has actually been really good since week 8. The Raiders have allowed the 10th lowest explosive run rate, third fewest rush yards per game, and the third lowest missed tackle rate. Now, what happened last week for Baker? You had Bucky Irving and Rachaad White having career days. That's probably not going to happen against the Raiders. You're going to need to pass here. I like a lot of their options. I like the guys out of the backfield in the air. I also like Cade Otton in this game, and I like the wide receivers like Mike Evans as well. I don't know if Bucky Irving plays. I imagine he does. If he doesn't, even better. I really like the spot for Baker Mayfield. So, like I said, I have 2 units total on his plays, 1 unit on the over and pass attempts, 1 unit on the over and pass yards. They obviously go hand in hand. We just don't really want Baker to complete like an 80-yard pass. Obviously, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. We'd probably cash pass yards. But if he can just dink and dunk down the field, a lot of short throws, hey, go for it. We'll support you. Give me the over in both of those 2 categories. Second play, we are going to go to... sorry, I had to take a break from the video to answer a call from my mother-in-law. But let's dive into some more winners. We go to Minnesota, where we're taking Aaron Jones over in rushing yards at 62.5 for my second play. This is minus 110 on Bet365. I always seem to choose the wrong play with rushing or rushing plus receiving yards. So rushing plus receiving yards is probably a free winner. I'm going to be sweating out rush yards the whole fourth quarter and hope that Aaron Jones delivers a winner for me. I swear it's happened last like 6 times, but let's hope Aaron Jones delivers on the ground. Something he didn't do last week, where he only had 5 rush attempts for 22 yards. He fumbled twice. He was benched for Cam Akers most of that first half, and it was just a bad game for him. I expect him to bounce back here, and that's typically what happens. And I don't actually dislike this matchup against the Falcons. Now, number one, they are 5.5-point favorites, so they might be leading in this game. I mean, sure, if they're leading, that might have a better chance of cashing our Drake London anytime TD bet in that parlay. But this season, the Falcons have decent rushing numbers. Like, they're like, all right, they're not the worst team in the world against running backs. They face some teams that just don't run the football. Last week, the Chargers didn't really run it a bunch. When you look at teams that commit to the run against the Falcons, they have success. And in fact, the 9 running backs this season have had 10 or more rush attempts versus the Falcons. Almost every single one hit this over. The only one that didn't had 55 rush attempts. So again, guys that are getting the ball 10 or more times are having success. And we look at Aaron Jones. Where's his rush attempts line sit at? About 14.5. So again, he's getting the rock, or they at least expect him to get the ball 13, 14, 15 times. And if he's doing that, I feel pretty good about him getting it done. We saw the one time this season where Aaron Jones, well, second time technically was last week. The other time where he didn't see more than 10 rush attempts. The next week he bounced back, 14 carries, 93 yards. And that was against the Lions, which were a very stout rushing defense at the beginning of the year. Now they're not so much, but he hasn't gone under this line in back-to-back games all year long. I don't know if they want Sam Darnold dropping back 100 times if they don't have to. I expect a lot of groundwork going for Aaron Jones. I love his over in rushing yards. Like I said, I don't mind the receiving yards. This is Aaron Jones. The Falcons give up a good amount of receptions to running backs. I just always seem to pick the wrong one. I really like the rushing yards here, so I want to just isolate it there. I won't be taking a ton of rushing plus receiving yard props going forward. Just pick my favorite one, and I think rush yards is the one to go with Aaron Jones. My third and final play in this video will be the guy that is on the thumbnail. It is about as square as it gets. Get it out. The square is here. Saquon Barkley over 107.5 rushing yards, minus 114 on FanDuel. Yeah, it didn't take a rocket scientist for me to come out here and give you a Saquon over. I should have just been doing it all year because he's been absolutely printing money regardless of matchup. Now, I do like this up to 114.5. Saquon is obviously chasing some history the final few weeks of the season, and this is as good of a matchup as it gets. So I'm not going to overthink it. I know the line's 107.5. It's not easy to get 100 rushing yards in a game, although Saquon's kind of made it look easy, but I have to take it and I have to roll with it. Now, I'll talk with the number 107.5 in a second, but the Panthers, who he will face on Sunday, have allowed the most rush attempts and the most rushing yards per game in the NFL. There's a reason I'm back here. I got to take it. Bucky Irving just ran for 152 on them. Rachaad White looked good, and he kind of stinks. He's not that bad, but he hasn't been good. And they both ran all over him. The Eagles as 2 touchdown favorites. You'd anticipate them running the football and running it pretty well here. Saquon is over this line at 5 of his last 7. One of the misses, he ended 1 yard short last week with 107. That happens and he finishes 1 yard short. Fine, I'll live with it. But again, this is too good of a matchup. And we've talked about Saquon Barkley before. I saw a graphic on Twitter. I don't know if I have the graphic for you, but the stat was 21% of Saquon's rush yards have come on carries. He didn't have to avoid a tackle, and he never saw contact. So his offensive line deserves a lot of credit. I'm sure he gives them a ton of praise every single week, and we'll give them a ton of praise at the end of the season. Look, the offensive line's doing a terrific job. So this is a Panthers defense that can't stop anything. And now you're getting an offensive line that's working and really moving and grooving, facing a guy coming in here trying to chase some history. The 107.5 is a pretty big number. And I know there is a chance that Saquon Barkley, maybe at the end of this game, they're up 3-4 touchdowns. Like, Saquon, you want to go back out there, try to pad the stats? He'll probably say no, like he did earlier this season against the Giants. However, 108 yards is what Saquon Barkley needs to break the Eagles' franchise record for rushing yards in a season. They're still at home next week against the Steelers, but I anticipate if Saquon's maybe getting close and he's at like 104 and they're up a couple touchdowns, like, Saquon, you only need 4 yards to get the record. I anticipate maybe he goes out there and tries to get those touches just to break the record before he comes out. So I do like the 107.5. I think he could easily hit 150. I'll just take it. I know it's square. I don't care. Give me his over in rush yards. I'm going to roll with him and the best matchup we can possibly get against the Carolina Panthers. So those are my favorite picks. Baker Mayfield, pass attempts and pass yards. We also had Aaron Jones over in rush yards and Saquon Barkley over in rush yards. Those are 3 picks. A reminder, let's cash that anytime touchdown parlay. And if you want to sign up for Sleeper, use my code COS or the link at the top of the description. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $1,500. Take advantage of that. Get some extra money in your accounts for Christmas presents. You need it. I appreciate you guys. I'll have that other video live on Saturday at 6 p.m. with 5 more player props that I love. Check it out when it is live. I'll link it somewhere over here. Have a great Sunday. Have a great weekend. Let's dominate the books. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.